Coming up on Good Journeys with Ben Veal.
Getting up, putting makeup on, getting my camera ready, getting the mic up, getting prepared, organising, planning a meditation, talking to people for a few minutes first, going live, talking to a few minutes people afterwards. I was online for 15 minutes. I felt that was a good something already good had happened in my day. Whatever happened for the rest of the day, much of which we couldn't control at that point, could we? I was good. I felt like I'd done something for others, and I felt good for myself as well.
Welcome to Good Journeys with Ben Veal, the show that explores the trails traveled and lessons learned from some truly incredible people.
A warm welcome to another purposeful conversation right here on Good Journeys. And joining me on the show today is a special guest who I've known for many years now, journeying through many different walks of life. Now, do you ever feel like life has lost a bit of its wow factor as you've gotten older? Do you still find yourself getting excited about the day ahead when you wake up in the morning? Or is everything just feeling a little bit meh right now? Well, my guest today is on a purpose-driven mission to change that and help you find your wow. She's the author of a book that seeks to explore how finding small moments of wow each day is the secret to living a healthier, happier, more playful and connected life, which sounds pretty good to me. She's a journalist, speaker, writer, and is also one of the UK's leading mindfulness experts. Joining me on Good Journeys today is my guest, Lucy Stone. Lucy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Ben.
Absolute pleasure. Now, we're recording this on a very dreary, overcast day. Where's been your wow so far in today?
Well, I'm very lucky because I do have a dog, and anyone who has a dog knows that they force you to go out and they force you to go for a walk, and they'll often then force you to find wow. So yeah, being in nature, I think many people would agree, is where we can often find those moments of wow, however dreary or grey the clouds and the sky might be.
Yeah, my little dog brings me all the wow each and every day. He is my love of my life, as my poor wife has to hear me say about 20 times a day. So let's start with Find Your Wow then. So here is your book, your debut book, and it's very much a response to the admin-filled, tech-driven, chaotic lives that we all seem to be living as adults these days. I know that writing a book is one heck of a journey to go on, and there's so much work goes into it. So what compelled you to write Find Your Wow?
So I've been on a journey. I'm in my mid-40s now, but about 10 years ago, I was working in the corporate world. I was head of PR in a big agency. I had a small child. And I think lots of people can probably relate to this. I really lost a sense of who I was. I really felt like I was functioning, just surviving, really. I mean, not massively unhappy, but not really finding joy or wow in very much at all, other than my child, I have to say. I mean, they always bring you joy, but even that, I felt like I wasn't doing a very good job as a mum, because I was having a really busy job in my PR world. My mum was really sick at that time, and I had caring responsibilities there. I had friends who I didn't see, and I just felt like I was running on empty. That's the best way to describe it. You know, when you leave your petrol too late and you're just running on fumes. That's how I kind of felt. So I've always been a yogi, and I've always practiced mindfulness since university. So by this point, like 20 years nearly. And I just had this feeling that life had to be different. There was another incident where my son had actually said to me, "Mum, can you run an after school club? Because all the other mums do." I'm sure they didn't, but in his mind, all the other mums did stuff at the school and I was never there. So as the only thing that I really did was yoga, I decided to go and do a little course on children's yoga so I could go and do some training at his school. And being the kind of efficient PR person, I had like a couple of days free, and I looked at where this course was run, and it was Paris. I thought, I can go to Paris. I'll go, don't really speak much French, but it was partly in English. It's going to be fine. And I went to Paris and I landed on a Thursday, and then that next day was Friday the 13th. It was 2016, and it was when the awful atrocities of the terror attacks happened in Paris. And I wasn't affected. I wasn't caught up in it. I was probably 15 minutes away, walk from where some of the awful things happened. But it was a real kind of sliding doors moment, because I'd met some people that day on the course. We were meandering around the streets of Paris looking for a restaurant, didn't have a plan. We could easily have gone left, not right. And if we'd gone left, who knows, we may have been caught up in something. And I think when something like that happens, and so many people were, awfully affected by that, physically, mentally, it makes you question, like, if the worst had happened and I'd gone on that day, or I'd been really badly injured, or, really badly affected, was my life how I wanted it to be? And the answer was a resounding no. I wasn't being there for my partner, my child, my mum, my friends, myself, actually. I was just, as I said, running on fumes. So I got back from Paris, that was in November, and by the February, I'd given my notice in on my corporate job. And by May, I find myself on a beach on a yoga mat in Goa, India, having signed up for a 300-hour yoga and meditation training course. So this is how I work, Ben. I'm quite, once I get an idea, I kind of go for it. And I just thought, I want to do something with my life that has more purpose, that's for me and other people. And who knows, makes a little difference, a drop in the ocean. So that's what I did. I retrained as a yoga and mindfulness teacher, and I came back. And then for 6 years, I taught children and executives, many of whom were like me back in the day, mostly mindfulness in the latter years, actually. And the book is based on what I learned and why children are so much better at mindfulness than adults, which always comes as a surprise when I say to people that.
And what I love about that kind of rapid nature of that journey and the transition there as you're describing, because it's not dissimilar to me. And I think me and you have known each other a long time, and both obviously being in the world of PR and worked in PR together. There's something about the jobs we do where through doing that, you get exposed to a lot of very ambitious business founders, CEOs, MDs. You see these people who have just kind of taken the world head on and achieved things. And I think it rubs off on you. Like I certainly have this mentality as I've gotten older, but actually there's nothing really that I can't do if I put my mind to it. But also it's an industry that both of us, it's wiped both of us out, because it is an always on business that you just can't ever stop, you can't ever switch off. And I think we've both gone through quite similar trajectories in a similar age in terms of finding what brings us both joy and purpose, really.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first night of being in India. There was a campfire, and we were all just getting to know each other around the campfire, and they were putting more logs and some paper. And then suddenly there was this little corner of a newspaper article. I've got it here somewhere. I wonder if it was on my desk, but it's not. And it just came away from the flame, and it was, scorched around the edge. And it just like floated down in front of me. And it was the corner of a news story. It was, not in a language I could read. So I couldn't understand what it said, but I just realized that everything I'd worked on, like all that stress, all that money that clients had spent, all that hard work, essentially becomes the corner of a burnt newspaper. Down the line. I mean, did it really make any difference? All those campaigns I worked on, maybe for a little while to some of the businesses that I worked on, but I didn't feel like it was lasting. And I took that little piece of paper, and I've still got it here somewhere, and I keep it as a reminder that, do the things that make a difference and are long lasting. And some of those things that I worked on almost, burn yourself out, literally, not in a campfire sense, and really, was it worth it? And I just decided, no, it wasn't. So, yeah.
But I think you have to also recognise the role that those things play in your journey. As in, both of us wouldn't be doing exactly what we're doing now if we hadn't gone through some of those campaigns and some of those sleepless nights and and moments. Like they're awful at the time, but actually they prepare you. And neither of us, if we'd bypassed that whole period of our life, we probably wouldn't be able to do what we're able to do now.
No, my story is no one else can write this story, and that's a mantra I have for everyone. If you're writing a book, or if you're living your life, no one else can live that life, because every twist and turn and sliding doors moment and decision you took and relationship you had has led you to here. I love watching golf. It's a guilty pleasure of mine on television. And quite often in the back, they have this billboard that says, "All roads have led to this." I think that's what it says. And I always believe that. And, your podcast all about journeys. The journey never stops. And every fork in the road, every decision which path to take is extending that journey until that journey's over. And that's a beautiful thing. I was at a retreat a weekend or so ago, and the guy was giving a talk, and he said, imagine at the end of your life you have two films that you can watch. One is the one that you lived, great. And what about the one where, if you'd taken that slightly braver route and taken some of those paths that are not so well trodden and would have been harder to walk on, would you like to watch that film? And I hope that I don't need to watch that film too much, because I'd quite like that to be the film that I live. But my life hasn't always been like that. And I think for a lot of people, for whatever reason, it can't be, or it isn't. And I think find your wow is about just trying to find those magical moments and stop and look at them. Don't rush on past, soak them up, absorb them. And actually, the more you do that, the more you'll notice others, and maybe you'll find more kind of bigger wows. You might have bigger life-changing wows, but you've got to start with the tiny ones.
So you've talked in the book about these kind of 5 foundational pillars of wow. So for anyone that hasn't read it, talk to me through this kind of framework that you've put in the book.
Yeah, so the framework came about in answer to that question. How do you teach a 4-year-old to meditate? And my answer this quite quickly became, no, how do you teach a 44 or a 54-year-old to meditate? They're the ones that really struggle. And I wondered why children were A, good at mindfulness, but B, in a classroom, you have wow-ometers. I mean, they just are saying wow all day, every day. And then I go into boardrooms or offices, and maybe you get 1 or 2 wow a day. And it tends to be the same people. So I spent 2 years, and it was actually during the lockdown and pandemic time, which was a weird time for everyone, that I was writing this book. I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I spent years researching and developed this 5 steps, if you like, that for adults who feel like they're living in a bit of a wowless world. Of course, we're not. That's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but feel like they're not saying wow enough. And I think that if they did, they'd feel better. If you draw a W, this is going to make it easier. So in your mind, picture a W. And at the top of the first W, you're going to think about stopping. So you can't find wow if you're not present, if you're not mindful, if you don't pause, if you don't probably physically stop. If you imagine turning the corner for a beautiful view on a walk, if you just, oh, that's enough of that, and just walk on by, then you're not going to have as big a wow. So the first stop is to pause and to be present, to be mindful. Okay, so then, well, we're all adults, so you're immediately going to come across the first killer of wow. So this is down the W, and that's distraction. So you're going to lose focus. You're going to get a text, your kid's going to say something, or you're going to just think, oh, actually, I think it's going to rain, we should get on. So the first killer of wow is distraction, and that's what we've all got to push through. Yeah. If you can push through, you get to the second peak of wow, or the middle part of the W, which is the flow state. Now, children who are between age 2 and 6, their natural brainwave state is flow. This means they're fully immersed, they're losing track of time, they're really happy in what they're doing, and it's actually us bad adults that get them out of that state. So if you push through and you really immerse yourself and you let go of your distractions and you just allow yourself to look at that view or to enjoy that run or skiing moment, then you're going to find flow. And that's the second pillar. But again, we're adults. There's another valley or killer of wow coming, and that's your ego. And that's not necessarily a pride thing. That's probably just that little voice in your head that says, do you know what, Ben, you've looked at this view long enough. I think you should probably get on and send those emails now. Or if you're painting and you're constructing something amazing with watercolors, that little voice might go, but that's rubbish, isn't it? You've never been an artist. Now, kids don't have ego when they're little. They just do. Anyone that's got children and has a fridge full of paintings will know that they don't have an ego. They think they're the best. Yeah. Quite right, they are. And then you push through ego. If you can put that voice to one side, then that final moment is wow. So you've got mindfulness, push through the distraction, find flow, don't listen to the ego, and then you're going to have a wow moment.
But the distraction's the killer, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing that jumps out to me so much through hearing you speak and reading your book. I mean, that is my single biggest challenge, is being distracted by my phone all the time and having to, like, literally I've got to a point where I have to lock it away at night now to keep it away from me so I can actually be present, even something as simple as being present in watching a TV show. You know, it's crazy. I mean, we've just reached this point, haven't we, where we're just always so distracted and always looking at 10 different things rather than focusing on one.
Yeah, it's I feel very lucky to have grown up in the 1980s when we didn't have phones, didn't have the internet. I mean, it does sound a bit idyllic and, you know, grass is greener, but it means that I was able to focus. You know, I used to watch a 3-hour, 2-hour film and not reach for anything. And, you know, even I'm the same, you know, if I watch a film with my son, we both try and put our phones in the kitchen. But I'm one of these really annoying people that want to look up where I've seen that actor before or the backstory to the historical moment they've just mentioned. So I've got to try and really resist that. Definitely. I mean, phones have killed our attention span in many ways. You know, there's a big part of the book called neuroplasticity, which is how we can actually retrain our brain. So it's not all lost. It just means we've got to be strict with ourselves. We've got to set boundaries. It's putting your phone away. I mean, I've heard of people buying like those really basic phones now that don't have the smartphone element on it, that just text. They might allow WhatsApp, but don't allow any social media. And I'm tempted. I only have Instagram on my phone now. I don't have any other social media. And that's actually because for me, Instagram is a bit of a wow curator. I kind of snap things when I'm out and I put them on my stories to try and share those things. But easily, if I have a spare 10 minutes, I'm waiting at the doctor's surgery or something, I'll doom scroll for 10 minutes. So no one's immune, but it does take a lot of responsibility and pressure to just try and work out your relationship. And all you need to do really, what's been the biggest hit for me is just looking at my screen time and just thinking, what could I have done with that time? How many books could I have read? You know, how many people could I have called? What movies could I watch? Where could I have gone? What else could I have done with that time? That is not the best use of my time. But much to my teenage son's delight, there is a whole part of the book about how technology can help you find wow. You know, he finds the flow state through gaming. He loves that. It's really social for him and his friends. And they'll have wow moments in their Minecraft world. And I'm okay with that. If it's not him doing it 24/7, he has his little times and he'll go and play football. And that's absolutely fine. There's a lot of research around how we can watch nature programs. I love the David Attenborough series. There's many series of this now. And yeah, you know, all of those natural world programs that probably we're never going to experience the Arctic or maybe a rainforest, but we can have those wow moments, especially with all the cameras now that they hide away and drones and everything. So I'm not saying that all tech is bad. No, tech can be good. And actually you can find many wows through technology. And I think that's only going to increase actually. And it'll be interesting to see how our human and mental health relationship kind of continues kind of in that AI world as well.
Yeah, I think so. But there's always, as you rightly say, like there's always going to be a place for nature. There's, you know, my sons go off into their world gaming and you can see there's great joy when they're doing that, but also they come to life when they're out in woodland or on the beach. And so as long as it's a healthy, and it's the same for us, isn't it? Like I go out each morning now without a phone. I used to always have my phone in my pocket, and so I need to measure my steps. I'm like, why do I need to measure my steps? I'll just go for a walk. It's irrelevant whether I tell my phone I've done 10,000 steps in a day. If I feel healthy, I've done enough steps. I think we've just got to this point where we always feel like we have to log everything, measure everything, always kind of be available to everyone at any time. And for me, it's just like trying to switch off a bit more and just looking around and going, oh, look, there's a nice cloud in the sky, or there's a, oh, look at the color of that door, or just basic stuff that we used to do before we had a computer in our pocket all the time.
Remember, I mean, the golden age of WoW, I say this, the masters of WoW are the 8-year-olds. They are, in terms of their brainwave state, they're kind of between mindfulness and flow. They're pretty chilled. They haven't got a real sense of that ego. They've got they just know who they are. They're not influenced by society too much. They're not too influenced by their peers. As soon as they get into the tweens and the teens, then that's definitely the case. So I always encourage people to think about, what did you love to do when you were 8 or a child? Can you bring any of those elements back into your life now? Or just embrace that inner child. I don't mean that in a kind of psychological sense. I just mean, like, be playful, like go and be inspired, go and look at the insects on the leaves, find that awe and wonder, learn, make mistakes. That's what children do. They know they're not scared of the red pen. They're in an environment of learning every day. They're at school, but when we become grown-ups, we kind of put on ourselves that we've got to know everything. And that's A, really boring, and B, you're never going to have the wows if you think you've got it all sorted. Someone said, much cleverer than me, don't never be the cleverest person in the room. Immerse yourselves with people that can inspire you, and children, because they will just give you a different perspective on life.
The other thing is becoming parents, isn't it? Like we were talking about earlier, but I had an author, local author, Sammy Burt, on a few months back, and we were talking about what it is to be a grown up, and what the point is when you go from being an adult to a grown up, which I don't feel like I have successfully traversed at almost 40. But it's like there's this expectation when you become a parent that you should know everything, that your kid should ask you these questions and you should have the answers to them. And I spend half my time with my boys saying, I don't know, actually, that's a really good question. Let me look that up. And of course, inevitably, you turn to Google and start to fall down that rabbit hole. But it's just that being kind to yourself and actually being like, no, it's fine to still be learning yourself, and to accept that at any age you're still.
I'd be so disappointed if I felt like I'd known, if I'd learned everything. That's a transition from my mid-30s to my mid-40s. Is that now, I love learning. I've got a real appetite to learn. I can't get enough of learning. I love going to talks. I love going to cultural theatre, music, comedy. I love reading. I love watching films. I don't think I learn very much from social media. So that's why I'm like, try and restrict that time. But just love traveling, seeing the world from different perspectives, and just having that, well, it is like a childlike view on life, really. And okay, fine, we've got responsibilities now as adults, but that doesn't mean you can't have that fresh look. And, I work, as well as still teaching mindfulness, I now work in a creative industry. And I love that innovating and like finding new ways to do things, to disrupt, to, make people think about things differently. And that's a complete joy. And I'm saying wow every day. And that's my rally cry, to know that I'm on the right journey, is that if I'm saying wow a good few times a day, then I'm on the right path.
Yeah, and it sounds like me, you're just actually excited about going into work. Like, of course, you'll have there's always dull bits to work, and there's always bits you don't want to do. But I genuinely wake up each morning, I'm looking forward to what lies ahead. And there were many, many, many years where that was not the case. And I think that's just what I encourage anyone who's listening or watching today to kind of rethink about any small changes they can make to their life to, bring in a bit more joy and happiness, really.
Well, Goodwill Hunting, there are two chapters that I'm really proud of the name. Goodwill Hunting is like thinking about where you say wow and trying to bring more of those moments. So it might be cooking, it might be travel, it might be nature. And this, by the way, in the book, I really encourage you not to spend loads of money. You don't need to spend any money, really. Even if you're for some reason not able to go out the house, you can have those kind of digital wows as well. And then the other chapter I'm really proud of is the new wow order, because actually there's science around the fact if you are finding wow, if you're happy, if you're in flow, then actually you begin to have that ripple effect on other people around you. There's something called collective effervescence. So if you're at a concert or protest, you know that you get those goosebumps from just being around people that feel the same way. And then there's another thing called mirror neurons. So even by purely just talking to each other now, our neurons are beginning to mirror, and we're beginning to feel the same way. If I was shouting at you and speaking really fast, then you would feel differently to how I'm speaking to you and acting now. So how we are in life, whether we like it or not, will have an effect on others. So some people are more motivated to do things for others than for themselves. So if you think, oh, I'm going to find wow because actually that might help others find wow, not because I want to find wow for myself, then that will happen. So, if you start share, that's why I put things on my socials, is that on my Instagram with stories, a beautiful view or a piece of music or a busker in the street that's taken my breath away. I'll share it because one person might get a wow out of that, and that's job done, really, and as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, same principle as this podcast. It's if this touches one listener and helps them reframe their day or take away something positive, then job done for me.
Absolutely. And as I say, it's the wows are there to be had. And the other thing I would say, there's different stages. So if you find a wow and you say wow out loud, just linger in it a little longer, because if you just go wow and then rush off, then it hasn't had that full effect. And there's loads in the book about the health benefits of wow for your mental health, for happiness, for feeling connected to the community, for creativity, for having a sense of perspective. Even like there's research around, it's mostly the studies have been around awe, but that's very similar to wow. When I sort of dug deeper, that is the same. And having that kind of, it's about shifting that perspective. And when you shift your perspective, it's around that neuroplasticity. It's about kind of finding a new way of looking at things. And if you're feeling a bit on a hamster wheel of life, then just shifting things up a bit, changing how you view things, changing how you get to work, changing who you speak to, changing how you make spaghetti bolognese because you make that every week, but let's just find a new recipe. Changing your playlist to world music, and you've never listened to it before, but just put it on and see what happens. That's what it's about, finding those micro moments of wow every day. And then over time, you'll find that you're finding bigger ones, and actually you might become braver to make some bigger decisions. This isn't about the big things at the moment, but actually that confidence you get, that happiness, that sense of well-being might just unlock something else that's maybe been frozen for you for a little while.
Yeah, I mean we're funny creatures, human beings, aren't we? Because we're very much grounded in routine and habits and what feels safe, and we will generally go back to whatever kind of behaviors have served us, well, not even have served us well in the past, but whatever we've kind of gotten used to. So jumping out of a comfort zone, even with a small change, can feel like a really big thing. And obviously you jumped out of your comfort zone and went into the world of yoga and mindfulness. And you talked about that earlier. I mean, but the numbers that you've been involved with now are incredible. Like over 15,000 primary school children you've taught, thousands of adults. Like, talk me through your approach to mindfulness, but also what the impact has been of your work so far.
So I got into mindfulness like kind of accidentally, really. I was in the rowing team at university and we did yoga as part of our training. And I was also doing a law degree, so pretty stressed and suffering with anxiety, a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just what am I doing at this Russell Group University studying law? Little old me from a council house in West Somerset. So I was suffering with anxiety at university, but didn't really tell anyone, didn't have any coping mechanisms, was doing yoga from a physical perspective. But then I began to realize those last sort of 8-10 minutes of yoga, which is the Shavasana, which is basically a little meditation, were really helping. And I was just wanting to do more and more of that. So began to read into what that was, about brainwaves, about breath work, finding that breath work could really help with anxiety, learning about how my breath could really regulate actually how I was feeling when I was beginning to feel panicky or anxious in my during my degree. And that's kind of the beginning of my journey. So that was kind of 18, 19, 20 years old, so 25 years ago now. And then it's always been there. Like I've kind of dipped in and out of yoga. So when I got busy in PR, didn't do it too much, but when I was pregnant, I did it. And then actually always remembered when I did it, I felt better. And it's always been the constant in my life, I suppose. Although I've been, rubbish at it at points, not going and not making time, but always knowing when I did make time, it made a big difference. So Freddie, my son, really can take credit for my change of career from that conversation at the breakfast table where he said that all the other mums were doing something and I was the only one not doing anything. I said, well, what shall I do? And he said, well, the only thing you do other than work is yoga. Right. Okay. And then you've heard that story, that journey of retraining. So I think when Paris happened, I was laying on my mat that next morning, that Saturday morning, when Paris was a very different place and half the course had gone home because they didn't want to stay. And I just burst into tears and I just realized, actually, this is what I should be doing. What if I started to teach children yoga and mindfulness, began to help them be in touch with who they are, either to make a difference on the path that they chose. I don't want to big myself up here, but to have an awareness about the path that they've chosen, hopefully a good path, or in this world which is troubled and has chaos and drama and awful things happening, maybe I can teach them a skill which I've learned pretty late in life. If I could teach them at 6 or 5, a skill which they can carry with them forever, to help them deal with life, then that felt like a really good purpose. And so that is what I did. And yeah, the numbers are just incredible. I taught all the way before lockdown, during lockdown online, and then out the other side. And it will be way over 15,000, but tried to put a number on it, and thousands of adults and as well, many of them, as I say, in the corporate world, and for the same 2 reasons, making good decisions and helping them deal with the stresses of life. Those 2 things really, rang true for me. It helped me personally. I'm one of these people that have to feel it to be able to teach it. So the fact that I'd been through that journey and been through all of those things meant that I could come at it from an authentic place. And I don't have a religion. So I've always taught it from a very secular perspective, which schools and corporates would want to, actually, because we need to be respectful of people with all religions and none. And obviously all religions have a form of meditation, through prayer or through visualization or through mantra or through chants. So I think it's a really beautiful way that whoever you are, whatever background you are, it doesn't cost anything, and we could all sit in a room together and hopefully feel a little bit better afterwards. And that for me is a really beautiful thing.
Did it help you to get through the lockdown, having yoga in your life and mindfulness?
Yeah, I think it probably saved me, to be honest, because the business I have now is called Meditation Rocks, and I have a little community of mindfulness practitioners who come together 3 or 4 times a week, 8 o'clock in the morning via Zoom, and I lead a live meditation, and I have over 100 recordings that they can also listen to. But that started in lockdown. So in lockdown, when I began to realize, oh goodness, this is not going to be over anytime soon. My school yoga business had closed. I was pivoted. I had a yoga studio at the time. I had to pivot that to online. But what I could see is that I think it wasn't just the yoga, it was the mindfulness that could really help. So I started going live on Facebook at 8 minutes past 8 with an 8-minute meditation. I just thought, I'm just going to do this for me. Shared it with some friends. They came, they shared it with friends. And before I knew it, I was getting 50, 60 people a morning doing mindfulness together. Beautiful comments in the chat saying, I've never done this before, but I'm now getting up to do this. And we talk about rituals and routines. You know, that was something I engineered and introduced to help me have a bit of a structure to my day. It was only 8 minutes, but that ripple effect, people were watching the videos all day. It was going around the world. I could see different countries were watching it. And that's what became the basis of my mindfulness business. The Guardian picked up on it. There was a story there about, you know, people kind of starting side hustles and then helping people. So no, absolutely. I did that for others. And there's a big piece of lots of research actually around that. If you do something for other people, actually, it helps you feel better. It's like giving to charity. You get that little rush of feeling like you've done something good. And that's not to say that's why we should do it, but that's a fact. You know, your brain is wired that if you help someone, then you feel better mentally. So getting up, putting makeup on, getting my camera ready, getting the mic up, getting prepared, organizing, planning a meditation, talking to people for a few minutes first, going live, talking to a few minutes people for afterwards. I was online for 15 minutes. I felt that was a good something already good had happened in my day. Whatever happened for the rest of the day, much of which we couldn't control at that point, could we? I was good. I felt like I'd done something for others, and I felt good for myself as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how different the lockdown would have been for me if I'd had this. Ironically, all of this came about after the lockdowns, but I certainly know. I mean, we've spoken about this together privately, but I know that, you know, when I lost my dad last year, having this helped massively, because regardless of what I was going through emotionally, I'd committed to get out regular content, which was about other people, not about me. So my gaze was always focused on someone else rather than myself. So I think even if you're doing things which, you know, where there is some benefit to you, obviously, you know, your Meditation Rocks as a business, this is my business, so there's still obviously some residual benefits to us, but your gaze is outward focused. I just think it helps a lot to take away, because we can all be our own worst critics, can't we? Talking about anxiety, like we can, if we have too much time to ourselves, as the lockdown proved, I don't think it's a healthy thing. So the more we can do where we're actually part of community and helping celebrate others, the better.
And I lost my mum in the lockdown. So in the May of 2020, you know, she passed away. I wasn't able to be with her because of the restrictions. But I kept going with the meditations. I had a little break, but definitely even more so when you've lost someone or something traumatic happens like that. It's not always possible, and you might need help to get that into your life, but finding some structure, positive routine, not doom scrolling, not necessarily going to the pub or whatever it might be, like finding some really wholesome, simple, joyful things where you can, you know, try and just bring a bit of happiness without any pressure. And that's what we did. So, you know, the meditation was one part, going for a long walk. I got a dog in the lockdown as well. A lot happened in the lockdown. Going for long walks, you know, being creative with my son, spending a lot of time with my son homeschooling, which had its ups and downs. And we had this thing where we had the Eurovision Song Contest as a project. So we watched like as many old Eurovisions as we can. He learned all the winners. He probably can't remember them now, but he learned all the winners. We were got really immersed in it. It was just something silly and fun that we just like had a little project. We also did our family tree, ancestry, and like went back to the 1600s and tried to find out about, who we were related to. He was desperate to find someone exciting in his past family. We didn't really
No
find
chance.
no luck. Some rich aristocrat in Burnley or somewhere we found that we're related to. But it was great. And we had these little projects, and that was about feeling part of something, part of our family, part of the meditation community, part of Eurovision Song Contest history. Silly,
I tell you what, when he one day he's going to win big on a pub quiz, isn't he? And he's going to thank you for that.
Mastermind. I'm aiming high,
Yeah.
He can actually. I mean, he's got an incredible Eurovision knowledge now. I mean, both have, but he has a better memory than me. It was fun. It was fun in many ways. Tough in many ways too. But I think that the brain is a weird thing. It often just remembers the good things, doesn't it? So,
but I think it's important to I reference for lockdowns quite a lot in conversations with people, because I do feel like we rushed really quickly back into things which weren't very healthy before. And actually, yourself, myself, quite a few people got real perspective during that time about actually slowing down and appreciating nature, and maybe not jumping right back into patterns of behavior that weren't good for us. And I just want to encourage anyone that's listening who maybe has just got caught up in the tide of life again, that actually there were some real blessings from life under lockdown. Like, it's certainly not the lockdown itself, but certainly this ability to slightly slow down and just appreciate the quiet moments and not feel like you're always at someone's beck and call the whole time.
I mean, it comes down to us all imposing this on ourselves. It's like when I went to India, I didn't really have my phone. I was away from my family for nearly 6 weeks. It's almost like that shock and awe situation where, whether it means you take yourself somewhere camping for a weekend or go and visit a friend, and try and just get away from that normal life for a little bit of time and take stock. I really encourage that kind of reset, but we don't want the lockdowns to come for that. But think what the lockdown gave us. Like you say, we were forced to be in one place more. We were forced to be with the people that we live with. We're forced to appreciate the small things. Couldn't have everything necessarily at our beck and call. So, but we can do that. We can just do that. It won't be easy, as we've talked about with boundaries and addictions to phones and habits and rituals and routines, but we can just do that. And maybe it's one change at a time. Doesn't have to be everything. It depends what kind of personality you are. I'm quite an all or nothing. I like to just stop. But I think just the book is about finding those little moments to say wow, and then when you find them, stay there longer than you would normally. And if you can just do that, then eventually you're going to probably change the pace of your life anyway.
Look, I guess it's one day at a time, one change at a time, one wow at a time, isn't it?
Yeah. One moment at a time. And when you have really big things in your life or big decisions to make, or you have a lot of stress or trauma, everything can feel like a mountain. And you just need to take one step, and then there might be a few stumbles back, but then it's just getting back up and taking another step and trying to see the beauty in the world. It isn't always obvious, but it is there. And, just looking out of your window or speaking to a friend, just remember how beautiful the world is and how beautiful life is. It's full of wow.
So look, this book, Find Your Wow, is very, very instructional, lots of exercises, lots of research, very accessible. But for anyone that hasn't picked it up yet, but maybe wants to have a few practical takeaways to end this episode on, are there a few kind of top tips you can give the audience? You've touched on some already, but to inject a bit of wow into today.
So the book takes you through the 5 pillars. So those 5 pillars of mindfulness distraction, flow, ego, and wow. So that's all there. Each of those has its own chapter about how you could find it and how you can bring it into your world. One thing I've not really talked about is to find your wow warriors. In your life, you'll know that there's those people, you might not even know them. They could be musicians that make you say wow. And just spend more time with them. So find your wow warriors, make time to be with them. Also, know your wow drainers. This sounds quite negative, but there will also be people, and they may be members of your family, there may be people that you work with who will just suck the wow out of any situation. And we can't change them necessarily. We can try and let this ripple effect happen on them magically. But it's about setting yourself some boundaries around that as well, because if you just spend your time with wow drainers, then it's really hard to kind of pull yourself up and out to find the wow. So I would make a little list privately of those people that you really always have a wow with. And it might be, as I said, friends, family, children, colleagues, people that you love to watch on the stage, and hang out with them more, whether it's watching or whether it's actually making a diary moment to be there with them. And talking of diaries, another big tip is to undiarize. We are a kind of generation of trying to fill every moment often of your day. And I would try every week to just set aside a couple of hours for non-specific wows. So once you've done the work from the book on where you find your wows, allow that 2 hours slot, whether it's early in the morning, Sunday afternoon, in an evening, where you just allow yourself to be immersed in wow-inducing activities. Bearing in mind, you may not always have your wow if you're not feeling great, but at least if you expose yourself to what might give you a wow, that's a better chance than maybe just doom scrolling on YouTube or social media, or I don't know, just like being bored at home. Although being bored is really, really good for you too, for creativity and finding those wow moments. But yeah, use your time well. It's very precious, and try and make the most of what you can without feeling too much pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of wow drains as well. I always think of Dementors from Harry Potter and that, and to just kind of suck the soul out of people. So I
We all
think
know who they are.
yeah, you just got to be wary and manage those relationships with care and tact, but also being aware of your own energy, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So how can my audience, you wear many hats, Lucy, but how can my audience find you today on social media? What are kind of, you mentioned Instagram, is that the main way to kind of keep in touch with you and find your book?
Instagram is now.lucystone, at not now.lucystone. I'm on LinkedIn as well, or I've got a website called Meditation Rocks. You can come through there. There's an email on there as well. But yeah, if you Google Lucy Stone, find your wow. The book is available on that site that we don't like to talk about on Amazon, but it is also, you can also order it from your independent bookshop if you prefer to support them, or Waterstones, WH Smith. So yeah, all wherever you want to, you can order the book. And I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to hear on socials how you've found wow, which would be great.
Yeah, so as always, all of those links will be in the show notes for this episode. Do check out Lucy's book, do connect with her on social media and let her know your wow that you've discovered. So look, that is us for today. Thank you so much, Lucy, for joining for me and talking wow together. And it's been quite a road we've both been on. I'm very excited to see what's coming next for both of us, really.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. If you can just say wow one more time a day, then that's been worthwhile writing the book.
Yeah, absolutely. A big thank you, as always, to my producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions, for putting the wow into Good Journeys. So that's it for today. This has been Good Journeys with Ben Veal. Until next time, let's keep climbing together, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.